Today is Thursday, May 5th. It's Cinco de Mayo. I want to take a look at the transports today because out of the major indices, this is one of the few that it looks like it might be breaking down. And take a look at the trend line up here from the top. You can see it's drawn to that spot right there. False breakout, but a very mild pullback, and then an actual breakout to a slightly higher high. So things were looking good about a week and a half ago. But as you can see over the last couple of days, the trend line from the bottom has broken to the downside, and the index is somewhat back below that other trend line. I'm not going to use that as an exact point just because it's kind of fuzzy, with the violations in both directions. But also, if we zoom in a little bit, you can see what's going on here with the moving averages. Here's the 50-day, and the 200-day is just in there as well. So it is now sitting on those averages. So it's kind of do or die for the transportation, the Dow transports. Just want to look at the support and resistance in here. You can see how far back that goes. So just some levels to watch. Because of the violation over here, though, you could consider moving that up just to compensate for that. So right now we got a short-term range. It is threatening a breakout. It is threatening a breakdown. So it's really kind of mixed right now. Underneath is price relative versus the S&P. Excuse me, it's the S&P ETF just because it was easier to type. But you can see that it is lagging again. So that's not a good sign for the transportation sector. All right, let's move on. I've got some of the Dow Jones indices here that break down the transports. This first one is marine transportation. You can see price relative here. It's improving, and this is actually still in a rising trend above this small resistance there. So this rising trend in marine transports, well, let's think about what do they transport. There's two things. There's the dry goods, and then there's the marine tankers, the oil tankers. So this could be a benefit there. Let's take a look at one more price relative here. I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to change this just to the Dow Transports ETF, using that again just because it's easier to type. So it's slightly outperforming, but not by a whole lot. So just something to keep an eye on the bullish side. Okay, let's move on to air freight. It's also still rallying, and it has a higher high here, which is a good thing, outperforming the Dow Transportation Average itself and above its averages. So if you want to look for something that's more on the bullish side within transportation, this probably is it. Let's just draw a trend line. May not be a perfect line. We could draw a second one. So you get an idea that it's still hanging on to a small breakout. Moving down the list, this is truckers. Again, these are all Dow Jones indices. Higher high, failing on the price relative to the transport. So that's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. You might say this is a double top breakdown, just so you know what I'm talking about. So this one's a little shaky. Truckers. Railroads next. Excuse me. This one looks even better than the marine transports. So the railroads, and they are still above this resistance. The rising trend is still intact, above the moving averages, and the higher high, which is nice. Let's put a trend line in. Now here's your first trend line. Try to get all these little things out of the way. All right, but because of the new data, you got to say, well, that's probably a better trend line to describe the whole action and the breakout. So it looks like a breakout, a test, and a re-break. So that's pretty good right now in the railroads. And finally, airlines. All right, that definitely does not look good. Definitely lagging. You do have a support here in this area, and you can see it goes back nicely over here to these highs, a couple of lows in here. All right, so this is a possible support area, and maybe a bounce coming. But overall, it's one of the weaker parts of the transportation sector. Now, which are the weakest ones? Well, truckers and airlines. And to me, I'm a chartist, not a fundamentalist, but those are the ones that seem to be most economically sensitive. I'm sorry, and also I'd throw air freight in there. So is that breaking down? No, it's still holding on pretty well. So 2 out of 3 possibly reacting to economic reports. Anyway, so I want to show how you can break down a sector into smaller chunks and see which ones are better and which ones are worse within the same sector.